is the founder of Greater Elevation, and she's a parent and teen coach. But in her community in the UK, she is known as the Bridge Builder. Jenny connects families, schools, and organizations to strengthen the relationship, boost emotional well being, and support thriving homes and communities, which is super important for this conversation. So I want to introduce you to Jenny Beckford.
Hi, everybody. Hi, so happy to be here. Thank you.
And I want to also introduce you to an amazing person from the clinical space, Elijah Lee. She is a credentialized pastoral counselor, an ordained minister, an author, and the host of Elijah's Space podcast. She focuses on helping individuals navigate depression, anxiety, trauma, and she does this through biblically based principles. She has a heart for the brokenhearted and a background in both ministry and mental health, which we know is super, super important because she creates those safe spaces for people to process their pain as they gain clarity and walk in their purpose. Elijah Lee, welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
And then finally, last but not least, my mother of the group, Apostle Dr. Patience Oti. Dr. Oti is the senior pastor of New Jersey Tabernacle, Shekinah House of Worship, Maryland International Tabernacle, and serves as the president of Shekinah Charities. And she has services and ministries, I want to say, all over in Nigeria, in Sri Lanka, in New Jersey, in Maryland, in Queens. She's just an all around spiritual warfare minister and apostle. So, Dr. Oti, please say hello to everyone.
Good evening. Excited to be here.
Thank you, ladies. So, I want to start with our first question, which is really the foundation of why we are here. We're talking about being whole and what it takes to be healthy, healed, whole, and held by God. So when you think about the word whole and this season in your life, what does it mean to be whole? And I'll start with Reverend Taekwana. What does it mean to be whole to you?
For me, particularly in this period of my life, um, wholeness was not something that I have had. And to be completely honest and transparent, it is still a very new concept for me to personally experience. And being whole means first being able to put God first. It is then putting yourself next, your family, your business, your community. And at various points in my life, my wholeness was compromised because I allowed other things to take that number one place. And so you can't be whole if you are a spiritual being and you have not put God first. And so even after putting God first, if you're not next in line, wholeness again will be something that will be a wonderful idea, but not something that you can speak to from experience because you've allowed all of these other things to take precedent in your life. And if you're not number two, a strong number two, you will not ever be whole.
Oh, I love that. Putting yourself as number two. So God first. But then if you don't put yourself second, you will never be whole. I really like that. Elijah, from a clinical perspective, listening to what Reverend Taekwana said, what resonates with you? What does it mean to be whole in this stage of your life?
So I see it as being whole from a multi-dimensional type of situation, that I am in a state of harmony in all facets.
Mm.
And so wholeness is something that, because nothing, we live in a fallen world, so nothing is going to be completely harmonious. But as long as my internal state is a state of being at peace, I'm not reacting to things the way I used to react from a broken place. If it's a state of me moving in such a manner that it's benefiting my emotional well-being and my physical health, my spiritual grounding, if it's making sure that I'm doing things in purpose with my work, if my relationships are authentic, if I'm seeing harmony, if I'm seeing peace, if I'm seeing joy, to me, that is what wholeness looks like. And it's not something that is always all the time, because we live in a fallen world, but my reaction to it is not such a knee-jerk reaction. It's a reaction of grace, mercy, peace, love, all those things interacted within those multi-dimensional areas of my life. That's what wholeness looks like to me.
Wow, that's great. Looking at it from all facets of your life and all dimensions of your life. Jenny, as the bridge builder, thinking about all dimensions of your life, working with youth and with children and helping to build that bridge, what do you think about wholeness?
Wholeness for me means just knowing who I am, knowing my identity, being at peace with the decisions that I've made, and getting me to be in this place, the woman that I am today, not looking back at maybe past mistakes, things that didn't go right in the past, but just knowing that I'm here now, and I am learning from maybe past failures, past mistakes, maybe the times when I didn't really know myself as I know now. So it's being at peace with who I am, and being at peace that knowing that I'm here to really just have that impact, on the families that I support, and just really just staying in tune with myself and being true to myself. That's what it means for me.
Yeah, I think we're all saying that the same thing, really tapping into who we are as people, staying true to ourselves, all dimensions of our life, but also putting ourselves right after God. Dr. Odie, I'm gonna throw the last response to that to you, but then I'm gonna add to that, as you're thinking about being whole and what wholeness means to you, how do you stay emotionally grounded in your wholeness while you're leading and serving others? Because you lead and serve so many people. So if you can combine wholeness and staying grounded for us, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, let me first of all say that I agree with the first three speakers, and my scripture will be Isaiah 26:3. You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind are steadfast. I truly believe, for me, being whole is walking in the fullness of who God created me to be. I'm a strong believer that we're tripartite beings: spirit, soul, and body. So when I'm spiritually grounded, emotionally aware, and physically present, I know that I'm whole. I'm in the right place. And at this time of my life, what wholeness means for me is that I'm not striving for perfection. I'm not looking for validation. I just want to be at peace with me, my spirit, soul, and body. And to attempt the second question, somebody here told us that we live in a broken world, which is true, and things happen every day. And for you to be able to minister to others, I always tell people you cannot pour out of an empty cup.
That's right.
You should make sure you take care of yourself first. Make sure you fill the cup. And in my ministry life, I tell them, I don't read the Bible to speak to you. I read the Bible to fill myself. And when I'm full, out of the overflow, I bless you. For me to be able to minister to others, I will be in the right place. And to say it in a better way, if my anchor is strong. I check in with God more than I check in with man. If I need to, I just make sure I'm in the right place and that he's filling me up. And with that, I can always minister to people. Even when it doesn't mean that everything has to be 100%, no matter what is going on. Because of the person I trust, I look beyond what is happening and look at the person that gave me life. Thank you.
Oh, I love that, because as long as we check in with ourselves, then we have the tools we need to stay emotionally grounded. We're not looking for approval from other people or what someone else needs. It's about being whole and by staying grounded within ourselves. Jenny, how do you stay grounded within yourself while serving others?
How I stay grounded is make sure that I have my time with God. That for me is the first thing above everything. Making sure that I am connected to God, praying, reading the word and meditating on the scriptures. That's something I set that up, first thing in the morning, as soon as my eyes open, that is for me. I also make sure that I'm checking in with myself. Sometimes every day I have like an app on my phone, and it will go for a certain time, like at lunchtime, and I will just, check in. How's Jenny doing? I even say to myself, how are you doing today? How's everything? And just really sit with myself and just, and at the beginning of the day and at the lunchtime and at the end of the day as well, just really go back to how I've been feeling, what has come up for me today as well. It's very important to tap into that, because where I'm serving others and I'm really supporting others and guiding them, it's very important that I don't neglect how my grounding and making sure that I'm staying connected to God, because he is my source and that's where I get my strength from. So that's something that I make sure I do in the morning, in the afternoon and in the evening. Sometimes it's more than that, because I have group prayers that I attend with my church online. I have a sister group that I pray with as well, but I have my own personal time as well. So it's really making sure that, I'm staying connected to God, and not stepping out of alignment and not putting everything else. It's easy to get up in the morning and want to check your phone, want to check your emails. And that was something that I used to do before. I hold my hand up, but now it's God first, and then I can serve afterwards. And that's how I keep myself grounded.
Yeah, that's so important. And you mentioned about starting our day. So we're going to do a podcast about how we start our day, because it's so important. I used to do the same thing. Get up in the morning. First thing you do is look at your phone. And then I realized, and I told my family this, if I look at my phone the first thing in the morning, I'm putting everyone else's thoughts and opinions in my mind after having hopefully a peaceful state of rest. So is the first thing I want in my head what someone else is thinking? Or is the first thing I want in my head what God wants me to think, right? Or my relationship with God and my prayer, my meditation. So I've stopped that. Even looking at social media, you're looking at someone else's thoughts and you're putting that in your spirit first thing in the morning. So I'm trying to train myself not to do that and helping myself to stay grounded. Reverend Taekwana, when you think about that question, because sometimes as women, it is so hard to prioritize ourselves, to take care of ourselves when we are strong for everyone else, our family, our children, our spouses. But we feel like sometimes we're falling apart inside. What would you say to that woman? Jenny just gave advice about what to do first thing in the morning, but what about the woman, the person who's just, she's there, she's holding everyone else together, but you don't see that she's raveling inside?
It is a difficult space. And I have been there time and time again. And I would love to be able to train myself to check in with myself first thing in the morning. But again, in true transparency fashion, most days I have to get up and look at my phone to see what day it is and what is on my schedule. I am a chronic workaholic. And so, honestly, most days when I wake up, I don't even know what day it is. So, I have to get up, I have to look and see what is on my schedule. But all of that can become overwhelming because, in looking at my schedule, it is who do I need to take care of first today? And quite often, it's not me. But it's a work in progress. I've done some things this year that I have not done in the past. But throughout the day, I have to make sure that I am emotionally okay. Because if I am not emotionally okay, I am spilling into others' lives and what they depend on me for, and with my best intentions on helping and or servicing them. If I am not okay, my product is not okay, my advice and counsel is not okay, my attitude is not okay. And when you are pulled in several different directions at one time, it is very hard to constantly check in with yourself. Am I okay? But when you know that you are almost about to pour from an empty cup, or your cup has been empty, like you cannot pour from an empty cup, but you will put yourself in knots trying to do so. And you have nothing else to give other than toxicity. You don't have anything else to give but garbage, because now you're getting rid of whatever is left in you. And so it's not necessarily the best place to be. I have very, very vivid memories of literally trying to make sure everybody was okay when I was dying, dying inside. And if it was not for the Lord Jesus Christ Himself appearing before me, asking me, who did I think I was? I would probably be dead today by trying to pour so much into everybody else and not take care of me. Because He's like, you're not me. You don't have to pretend to be me. You don't have to solve everybody's problems. That's my job. And so every now and again, I get that lesson like, you don't need to do this. That person needs to fall on their knees for themselves. That person needs to seek me for themselves. And so once you are able to pull yourself back together, it is a place that you are careful to not hit back rock bottom.
Thank you for your transparency, because I feel like you're telling my story. Because I'm telling you, and Dr. Odie, you know this, I would leave here at 6 o'clock in the morning, be in the office at 7, leave the office at 7, come home, pull up my computer, and my youngest son would say, Mommy, you just left work. Why are you working again? And sit in my living room until 12 o'clock at night working. And still now I do the same thing. I'll get up in the morning and come here and sit in front of this computer all day and tell myself to take a break. So we have to learn how to take care of ourselves. So I truly appreciate your honesty with that. And when you add being a woman of faith and serving in our house of ministry, a house of faith, it becomes even more and more difficult. So, Elijah, how can women of faith, listen to what Reverend Taekwana just said, how can we give ourselves permission to rest, permission to be still and still be considered strong, or all the things that we do, but we have to find a way to give ourselves permission to rest.
So there is a difference between surviving and thriving. Surviving is, we're going from place to place, or we're going from point to point, or we're checking off the list, or we're doing what we have to do. Thriving has to do with recognition that we are in partnership with Jesus Christ, that he has command of time. And whatever we do within the day, we surrender that to him, trusting that what we cannot finish, what we cannot do, that he will do the rest for us. He will bring the people to us. He will restore what we feel like we need to do. See, many times we, even when it comes to ministry, he'll put something on our hearts to do. And when we put something on our hearts to do, we take it over. It's like it's his ministry. It's not our ministry. It's our family is his family too. We're just stewarding what he's given us. And I think it's a shift in mindset, because a lot of times we take on things that we really shouldn't have to take on.
Mm-hmm. That part.
We carry things that we shouldn't have to carry. The word says that his yoke isn't heavy. The word says that his burden is light, for us. And sometimes we have to do a trade, and give him our sorrow in order to receive his joy. We have to give him our what is toiling for us, so that we can walk in the peace he's called us to walk in. And see, that's a constant thing. That's not something that's not a one and done thing, especially with the way, times are now, because everything is electronic. There's a lot more ease when it comes to communication and doing things. And so what I think was meant to not be so heavy for us, we say, oh, well, we can do this quicker or this quicker, so we can take on more. And see, we are not machines. God did not create us to be machines.
Right.
So one of the biggest things that you can do is you have to be intentional, because if you're going to go from surviving to thriving, you have to be intentional. You have to be moved in purpose. And if it gets to a place of being intentional about during certain times, just doing a pause, and whatever that pause looks like, getting away from your computer, getting away from your phone, whatever that pause looks like, that's how you move. And taking that time to do whatever that you need to do that is meaningful to you at that time, whether it be spending time in the Word, whether it be spending time with your family, all of those things matter. The Lord did not, it says in his word that he wants us to enjoy life. It doesn't say he wants us to just go through life. And I have to believe, just like most of us probably do, that when it comes to living life more abundantly, that's what Christ said. He said he wants us to live an abundant life. It's not going from task to task. It's not going from role to role. It's going from a place of where we are enjoying the life he has given us here on this earth. So there's a lot I could say on this topic, as you can see, but I know that I only have a certain amount of time, so I want to respect the other panelists and your time. But I think the first thing to consider is being intentional about what brings you joy and slowly bringing that into your life, because those are steps you can take in order to go from a place of surviving to thriving.
Yeah. No, I know. I could tell there's so much on that topic, because it's something that we really struggle with, and we probably just need to have a conversation about that topic alone. Take up the whole hour and a half, because it's really a struggle. And you know, we also have to make sure we set boundaries related to our healing, our growth, our wellness, and our peace. And Dr. Odie, I know in the beginning you said at this point in your life you're not looking to please anyone. You're checking in with where you are with God. So help us out here. How have you established boundaries in this situation of your life to make sure that you are in your ministry, you're leading, you're serving strong, but you're also taking care of yourself first? What boundaries have you set?
I'll start by saying that certain things happened in my life and it helped me to have a real paradigm shift. The first boundary is that before I didn't know that there was a word called no.
Yes.
And I cannot say no without being guilty.
Mhm.
And I did not realize that no is a complete sentence. That's one thing that has helped me. Now, if I know I can't do it, or I can't do it comfortably, and I'll be doing it and complaining, I'll rather say no.
Right.
That has helped me. Another thing is understanding. Now that I know that Jesus is the bread of life, not me, I will stop tearing myself apart to feed everybody. I'm not the bread. It's Jesus that is the bread of life. So I'll be able to know what I can carry at any particular time and what I cannot carry. And it helps me to set boundaries. So, and I look at boundaries as it's not, I don't look at it as something terrible, something bad. It protects me. And in the long run, it may even be a blessing to those around me.
Amen. I love that. Yes, boundaries. And no is a complete sentence.
Yes.
And we don't have to feel guilty when we say no, because I like Taekwana had mentioned, I've struggled with that, saying no, helping everyone, and feeling like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And I think there's a part of being able to forgive ourselves and forgive others and letting that play a part in our journey of wholeness. Because when we say no and we feel guilty, sometimes we feel like we have to forgive ourselves. So Jenny, I'm going to give you this question. What role does forgiveness of others or yourself play in your journey to wholeness?
Okay, so just on the back of what Dr. Oti stated, I too had struggled with setting the boundaries and using that word no, doing things that I didn't really want to do, but felt bad that I'd be letting people down. But really, I'm letting myself down because I'm not being honest and true to myself. And I mean, just looking back at my journey, even in terms of what I do today with the families, the parents, and the teenagers, me supporting, especially the parents, I had to look at myself a few years ago because my relationship with my daughters was not perfect, and I wasn't that parent that I felt that I needed to be, and I carried that for quite some time. I think especially as I became a single mother, and never thought that I would be in that position. So it brought up a lot of guilt for me in terms of forgiving myself, and then also looking back and forgiving my children's father because the relationship had come to an end, and I built up a lot of resentment with him as well. So my journey of becoming whole is I had to really just release and forgive him. And, I spoke to him about how I felt and, asked him to forgive me because the way that I was painting him in that picture, because when I look back, we were really young, and then had to look at myself and say, look, you was a parent, there wasn't a manual, and as far as you was concerned, that was the best that you could do at the time. So it's really, when I look back and I really did the inner work and I really got connected with God, it's really helped me in terms of even supporting families and letting them know my story, that I had to just forgive myself and say, look, we can't keep looking at the past, because what would happen is the past would, shouldn't define my future. And this is something that I tell a lot of the parents as well. So yeah, just coming back to your question, I really had to strip away those layers and had to really dig deep and looking at what is it, why do you keep blaming yourself, what's going on here. But I got to that, and I can now say today that I'm free from having that guilt, because I know that if I'm standing with God, me having this guilt, I'm really just making this journey, me not being able to be connected with God when I just can't forgive myself, it's really just making that distance with that relationship. So I had to really just work on myself and just look forward and really just partner with God to help me to forgive myself and to let go.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for your transparency, everyone, for sharing part of your journey, because that's what we want to talk about. And that's a good segue, because I want to shift gears a little bit. We're all women of faith. And I know sometimes when it comes to faith and our feelings, there can be some tension and there can be some discord with, am I acting in my feelings, which are very real and relevant to me? And how does this impact my faith? And navigating that tension, especially when we're hurting, right? When something's happening to us, whether it's church hurt or family or trauma, it can be difficult. So how do you navigate, and anyone feel free to answer this question, the tension between faith and feelings when you're hurting? Is there a tug of war there for you all when you're thinking about the faith and what God wants me to do versus what I feel in my flesh, and how to navigate that? Taekwondo?
So I have come to realize that if I rely solely on my feelings and transparency, I'm going straight to hell in a handbasket. And so I am very conscious in how I am moving when I am presented with, I can do this and rely on God to take care of it, whether it's good or bad, or I can act in my feelings and try to take care of it, try to get back at people, be unforgiving. And honestly, I have really looked at myself and said, God has been so merciful to me and my sinful flesh that I can't withhold forgiveness. I've learned the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. And once you are able to recognize the two, that they are two different things, forgiveness is a complete sentence, full stop. It does not mean that you now have free reign to go and reoffend me, to reuse me, to hurt my feelings. I am forgiving you and I'm going to let you walk right out the door. But as it pertains to my faith, the older I get, the more comfortable I am just resting into it and tapping in before I move, because I am so sensitive for the most part to the Holy Spirit. I don't want to offend the Holy Spirit. I don't want to jeopardize my blessings. And I want to make sure that I'm not going to hell in the handbasket, being vindictive and being the person who I was, and really looking into the person who I am now and making sure I'm moving who I am today and not who I was in an unhealthy and an unhealed state.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely having to have that delicate balance and understanding my feelings, but what am I doing in my faith? And for me, I feel like most times I'm too afraid of God and what would happen if I do something. So I lean towards that and trying to walk in my faith other than my feelings. And anyone else want to tackle that question?
I want to say something about the paradox of Christianity.
Yes.
which means what people will consider common sense. The Bible tells you to do it the other way. You don't like my face, I'll still be praying for you. You slap me on this side, I turn the other cheek. You go to Romans 12:21, it will tell you overcome evil with good. So talking about my feeling, it's not easy to do it. But when you recognize that you are walking by faith, not by sight, and you are not actually supposed to go the way you are feeling, that gives you an extra strength to do it the other way. That becomes the wind beneath your wings, because you know, if you're a Christian, there's something like the paradox of Christianity. You cannot do exactly what the world is doing. You have to go the other way. Take the narrow path.
Yeah. Take the narrow path. We have to go the other way. And when I think about going the other way, thank you for that, Dr. Odie. I think about how faith has shaped and sustained my emotional healing journey. And for me, everyone, knows in this call, I've went through a very sustained period of compounded grief over the past 6 years in the transition of my mother, my father, and my sister. So grief became a part of my deeper purpose and spiritual growth, but it also gave me non-negotiables. I hate that it took that for me to establish those boundaries, but I have non-negotiables. If something robs my peace, it leaves my life. And I go by this motto: what you welcome into your life, you have to entertain. So I've learned not to welcome certain things into my space and into my spirit. So as you're looking at your faith walk and your healing and your wellness, what are some non-negotiables that you have had to establish for you? So different than boundaries, but things that are just, it's a non-negotiable for your healing and for your peace in your journey.
Can I jump in?
Go for it.
My me time with God.
There you go.
No matter what is going on around me, I want to keep my time with God. It's non-negotiable. And the way I look at this, if what is happening to me can succeed in pulling me away from God, it will kill me. Because that's what the devil wants to do to you. So I will never allow that to happen. So I make sure. Another thing I discovered in life, things that you don't schedule, you don't do them.
Yes.
I've come to realize people who say, I will pray, I'll read the Bible, I will do this, I'll jump over. They don't do it. So I try to do a schedule and I try to follow it. Another non-negotiable for me is this. I journal. Journaling, I think I've journaled for over 25 years. It's so part of me. I think on the paper. That's when it gets here, it's getting down. I think on paper. And it has helped me a great deal in life. So I don't know if that will help somebody.
It helped me because when I look back at my journal as well, but when I look back at my journal, they were complaints. My journal was, this went wrong, that went wrong, I'm upset about this. So I just transitioned, I want to say within the past 2 years, Dr. Odie, my journals to be gratitude journals. And I forced myself to only write down things that I'm grateful for, or if I see myself teetering into the complaints, I'll stop and try to remember that promise I made to myself for a gratitude journal. So that helped me. Does anyone else journal, and how does that help you in your wellness and your spirituality and your faith?
Yeah, I journal. That's a practice that I do regularly. And it's really helped me in terms of, just looking back to how God has really helped me to just overcome, how I was showing up, as I said before, as a parent, the guilt, and just really being grateful, and just listing down all the things, similar to both of you ladies, the gratitude, just being really grateful. In my journals, I write prayers, just really just writing it out all on paper, what I'm grateful for and what I'm looking forward to happening and what expectations that I have as well. So it's really helped me in terms of really just filling up my spirit and keeping me connected and grounded throughout the day.
Yeah, yeah. Same here. So I want to get into our whole, healed, and held conversation. Being held by God. And I'm going to throw this question to everyone. As you're thinking about your wellness, we talked about boundaries, we talked about what wholeness and wellness means to you. What does it mean to you as you're going through healing to be held by God? Not in theory, in real life. I can say for me, as I was going through my grief journey, it became a portal to deeper spirituality for me and deeper spiritual growth. But I really felt like I wasn't able to get through that process without God holding me and being held by God. So I'll ask you, and Elijah, I'll start with you. What does it mean for you to be held by God in real life and not just in theory? How does that feel?
For me, what it looks like to be held by him is I hold on to his word. So it doesn't matter what the situation or the circumstance. I'm not negating the situation or the circumstance. And I'm not even negating what I feel. But I've realized in different seasons of my life that his word will sustain me. His word will hold me. His word will see me through. And you can't go wrong with his word because his word is life. His word is healing. His word is hope. So, what I've done in my past and in my present is I've just held on to his word. And there have been times in my life where I've had to I faced different forks in the road, you know, and I had to choose. And it was easier to choose the other road. It was easier to do that looking back. But I've never regretted always choosing him, despite what it looks like, because he's always proven himself to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes you to another place in your faith when you go through those journeys. And there's that scripture that says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread.
Yes.
And even in times where I have experienced wilderness, desert, and even some times where things were lacking in my life, God has never not shown up. And a lot of it is because I held on to his word. Sometimes when you pray and you're going through those trials, it seems like he is so far away, or you just can't hear his voice, or you just can't feel his presence, or you can't, you feel like it's empty. And those are the times you have to make the choice. And I think as a result of that, that's what has helped me, is his word.
Yeah. Yeah. Making that choice. Thank you for that, because I know I had to make that choice to let God hold me and not try to do everything. Dr. Odie, what about you? What does it mean to be held by God in real life?
Um, it will be Deuteronomy 33:27. The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are his everlasting arms. When you have that understanding, For me, being held by God is not about answers. I may not see answers, but it's about presence. I will, once I have that peace of God in me, I know that He's there. He's holding me up. The answers may not come as quickly as I want them, but just knowing His presence. My sister Elisha said a lot about the word. I'm a woman of the word. I believe the word. I read the word. I walk the word. Just having that scripture that underneath me are His hands, which means no matter which way I fall, He will hold me up. No matter how I tumble, I will land on all fours. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And it's amazing how we're all saying the same thing in a different way. Reverend Ty, how are you held by God?
So if you will just allow me a moment, I have to tell the story. About 17 years ago now, I buried my first child. I had had a number of miscarriages, and 17 years ago, I had a stillbirth at 28 weeks. And it was probably the worst trauma I have experienced in my life. And in getting through that, I could not understand why. God, why wouldn't you let me have this child? There's so many people out here having babies. They can't take care of them. They're bad parents. Why did you take my child? And the long story short was God said to me, you can't live how other people live. I have blessed you and I require more from you than I require from other people. And I have a call on your life. And for you to complete the call that I have on your life, you have to walk a certain way. You have to talk a certain way. You have to live a certain way. And He told me that I would be a mother. Fast forward about 4 years after then, I was a mother. And I did give birth to a child. That was a very scary process. I'm going to fast forward to 2020 that Dr. Darlene is very familiar with. I was pregnant again. I was married. I was pregnant with my second child, the child that the doctors told me to abort at 13 weeks because he was going to be born with developmental delays and Down syndrome. And they threatened me with, you're going to die, your child is going to die, or both of you are going to die. And if you don't die, you're going to so severely damage your organs, and your child is going to be such a burden on your entire family. It won't be worth it. And at that moment, I knew that I had to rest in God, because God told me that if I walk this way, if I live this way, I was going to be a mother and that I would not bury another child. And so being able to hold God at His word, because you've recognized that it was Him who said it to you. God is not a man that He should lie, and He doesn't change His mind. For me, being held is me trusting what He said to me. The word is the word is the word. But when you have a personal relationship and experience and you hear from Him, being held is holding on to that word. When I was a teenager, I always loved the book of Job so much. And there was a scripture that I did not understand, and it was Job 13:15. It said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. And for decades, I could not understand, God, why you got to slay me? And I still got to trust you afterwards. Until I lived it and I experienced it, it showed me how to trust after the slay. It showed me that I can trust Him through the slay and because of the slay, because He is still God. And so that I had to tell the story so you understood exactly where I was coming from and how personal it was to me. Once He told me, you're going to have a child, you're going to be a mother, but you're going to do it this way in decency and in order, and you're going to be married. That somebody unmarried could have a child and have a beautiful child, a blessed child, a healthy childhood. That was not my walk. My walk was different. And so I had to walk that walk. I had to do what he said to do the way he said to do it. And that is how I know I was held. When I got to the place with my son, who is now going to be 5 years old, I could say, whatever God does, whatever he decides, if he decides to take my life, it is well with my soul. If he decides to take this child's life, it is well with my soul. That was the only way I could get through that, because I knew God did not lie to me and he would not do that to me again, because he told me A plus B equals C, and I'm followed that formula.
Thank you, Reverend Taekwana. Every time you tell that story, and you know, for the other panelists, I know this part of Reverend Ty's life. It's amazing to me because you know we go through these situations where we absolutely have to depend on God to hold us, and we have to recognize us. And your ability to go through that and recognize God holding you, and now living your life and sharing that story with so many people. I don't know if you realize how many people you are helping every time you talk about your journey. And Jojo is such an amazing little boy.
Mhm.
He is a testament of faith, of love, and of life. You know, so thank you for sharing that. Jenny, being
Wow.
held by God.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That was a testimony. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Tuan. That was amazing. For me, it just really brought up a period of time in my life. I think I shared this with you, Dr. D, when we spoke about 2 years ago, when I was admitted to the hospital because I had some problems with my stomach, was bleeding, didn't know what was going on, and they said that they would need to do a scan to see if there was a tumor. But the way they were saying it, they just said, we're just going to do a little check, you know. And I said, what is it you're checking for? We need to see if you've got a tumor. I said, do you mean cancer? Well, you know, and I remember them saying that to me, and they had booked me in for a scan. And, you know, I was holding on to the word. I was, you know, God, I know, God, you're gonna get me through. You're gonna get me through, you know. And I was really just doing my best to block everything out, you know, praying, had people praying for me. And I had the scan, and they came back and said it was fine. And then a week later, they said, oh, we've made a mistake. We can see something, a shadow, but we don't know what it is. So from that moment on, I said, right, I am really going to just go, I'm just going to really just get even stronger connected with God. So I was using Isaiah 53:5, and that became I was praying, but that became my anchor, my affirmation. By his stripes we are healed. I don't want to listen to anything else. By his stripes we are healed. The woman rang, she said, oh, we saw a shadow. Are you losing weight? I said, listen, just put me in for the scan, because by his stripes we are healed. She said, I don't understand. I said, it's fine. I'm fine, but you can do the scan again. But I'm telling you, by his stripes we are healed. And I kept saying that every day, every night, every day, every night. And by the time we had the scan, I went into the scan and I asked the doctor to take a picture. And I think he thought I was crazy. I said, take a picture, because this needs to be my testimony. I need to go back and let people know. And we got the results back. They said, we still have to do another test. We have to do a camera test. I said, that's fine. By his stripes we are healed. And I got in there. We went to do the test. And I remember that day because they had some music on. And I said to the doctor, turn the music up, because, you know, I just want to get this over and done with. He said, oh, I like you. Your spirit is very, very nice. It's good. He said, anyway, I'm telling you, we can't see, there's no cancer. There is no cancer. And I said, I know there's no cancer, because God, he has never let me down. And it just led me to think about sometimes, you know, people are worrying about what they get, you know, how much money they haven't got, what, you know, their bills and their debts. And at that time, no amount of money could help me. Nothing like that could help me. But I had to stand on his word, and I did. And yeah, that really just gave me that thought that that anchor, he really held me because I held on to his word. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you held on to your faith. You held on to your faith in God, what you believed, and you wouldn't let anything sway you from that. These are such amazing testimonies. We have about 20 minutes left, so I want to make sure we continue to touch on the meat. So just thank you all for being so transparent and sharing your journey. I know our listeners are really getting so much information, and I'm sure that there's someone that can relate to every story that we have shared in our journey. Staying on faith and looking at emotional survival and emotional wellness and the difference between the two. I know when I went through my grief journey, and I'll tell a little bit about that, my father, Reverend Brown, had an illness, and he passed away after suffering for a couple of years in July of 2019. My mother was fine, we thought, but if they were alive today, they would be married 60 years and 80 years old. So her getting sick a year after he passed, a year to the date, made us believe that she probably was hiding her pain. And she became ill in June, and very quickly, by that September, the doctors told us that she would not make it, and she passed that January. And then my only sibling passed away last February, a year later. And many don't know, but they're going to know now. Last October, the doctors gave me up and told me that I wasn't going to make it, but I'm still here. So we know the devil is a liar. I tell that story to talk about how I went from emotional survival to emotional wellness. I felt like I was just surviving. I think someone, maybe Dr. Odie, was you, that said there's a difference between surviving and thriving. And I had to shift my perspective and focus on wellness. When you think about emotional survival and emotional wellness, and anyone jump in, what's the difference to you, and what advice would you give our listeners to get to the point of wellness for the emotional state versus just surviving?
I would probably say stop carrying other people's trauma. Carrying their trauma and their drama in your everyday life makes your whole being burdened by something that you wasn't ordained to carry. And we get into this mindset of service and helping and seeing other people go through, and then we take all of that on our own, and it doesn't provide an environment for us to thrive, for us to be whole, for us to be emotionally well, because we are taking in somebody else's sickness. And so I would definitely exercise the use of boundaries. Everything that has been said on this call is like a how-to book.
Yeah.
No is a whole sentence, and really putting yourself first after God. And that, I think, is a good recipe for emotional wellness. And it is most certainly easier said than done when you have people that rely on you and they're used to being able to pick up the phone, talk your ear off for hours. You show up, you're dropping what you have to do for you, what you got to do for your business, for your job, your family. And that's just not healthy, because you are literally giving a limited amount of time that you have away, making sure somebody else is well, and you're not checking in and giving yourself equal or more time.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Emotional survival and emotional wellness.
Yeah, I think that emotional survival is reactive. while emotional wellness is rooted. What do I mean by that? When I suppress things, I'm just trying to push through. I'm almost numb, but I'm still trying to put up a face. For me, it's emotional survival. But when it's emotional wellness, it has to do with being present, being intentional, running it through with God, knowing exactly what the problem is, getting to the root of it, and coming to the place of peace. Then I know I'm living.
This is a how-to book, just like Reverend Ty said. Elijah, emotional survival versus wellness, and then we'll go to Jenny, and then we're going to do our last question.
When I look at surviving versus thriving, when you are surviving, what we tend to do is we pick up those unhealthy, toxic, negative things that it took for us to survive within those situations. And when you're in a space of thriving, we have shed those negative things so that we can be in a healthier space, a happier place, a place of joy. In a way, surviving is another phase or another place within victimization. And thriving is taking what has happened and choosing to do the hard work, processing those emotions, acknowledging that happened, surrendering the grief, surrendering the pain, and allowing yourself that space and time to heal so that you can become more resilient and whole in the next phase of your life, so that you don't continue the cycle of what happened with that other situation, circumstance, or person within the other relationships and connections you have within your present life. It's truly making the choice to say goodbye to the past and not continuing within those unhealthy patterns that help to maintain the chains that kind of continue those things on, is dealing with those things so that you can move forward, and that's really what the biggest difference is. You use survivor. I say surviving to thriving quite a bit, because that's what I do with my practice and when I talk with people. So I flow that way. So, but that's the biggest thing, I think, when it comes to emotional wellness, is really being able and willing to do the work. It's not enough just to say, I know this is happening, but actually doing the work makes the difference when it comes to emotional wellness.
Yeah, I love your point about making sure we don't get into that cycle, because if we don't pay attention, we'll end up just repeating it continually. Jenny, what are your thoughts before we get to our last question?
Yeah, just want to add to what Alicia said. For me, emotional survival, it takes me back to thinking about a period of my time in my life when I was addicted to chaos. It was, everything just, I just wasn't able to sit still. If I was sitting still, this is too quiet. I need to be doing something. And because of all the years where I've worked multiple jobs, carried this I'd say this title on my back, I'm the single mum, I have to survive. I have to be addicted to chaos. I've got to work 2 or 3 jobs because of my daughters. And then as I started to do the inner work on myself, and it made me realize that way of being is something that you've just continued as a cycle. And then I thought it was normal. So when I started to work on myself and became really tapping into the emotional wellness, to know that you don't have to be juggling 600 things at once to say, like, look at me, I'm strong, I'm a single mom, I did it by myself, I brought up these twin girls. But just getting to a time when I had to, as Alicia was saying, break that cycle, because that cycle had been following me for years, to a point where it became part of me. And I started to wear it as a badge of honor when people would say, oh, you're always doing this, you're always doing that, So when I started to do the work on myself and realize that actually it's normal just to be calm and not always having to have this badge that I've got to do it all. And I've got to, do everything now because I've got to be strong. So yeah, that's what that brought up for me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah. So this has been such a great conversation, and we have dropped so many gems about wellness, about spirituality, about faith. For our last question, and I would love for you to use this as a way of speaking to someone that you think needs to hear it, whether it's a woman, a child, a person. If you were to give advice to someone who may be feeling stuck, someone who's watching this call, who is stuck, whether in not knowing how to set boundaries, not believing that no is a complete sentence, just running and running and living in chaos, as Jenny just said, and they're feeling stuck mentally, spiritually, or emotionally, what advice would you give to them to get unstuck, to help them through the process?
The advice I would give is pray and then center yourself. Quite often we are doing things that could be described as either people pleasing or having a savior complex. And both of those things are a recipe to run yourself down, to constantly be unhappy, overwhelmed, and overworked. And so I think it's very important to learn who you are. What are your own boundaries? What are things that are triggers for you? What are things that if you take it on, it's going to take you under? What are the things that will make you happy? What are the things that will bring you joy? Do you know what joy is? Do you know the difference between happiness and joy? Are you seeking happiness or are you seeking joy? And I think if you spend some time with yourself and with God, seeking the answers to those questions, it will open up an entire world of healing, of forgiveness, and of boundaries that you just didn't know existed.
Yeah, yeah. Difference between joy and happiness. That's a whole nother conversation as well. Elijah?
I would say focus on the small things, because a lot of times when you're feeling stuck, you're looking at the big picture. So maybe focus on what small changes you can make. And then I also would say celebrate the small wins.
Mm-hmm.
So because in the small things you start to see the big changes. So that's one big thing that I would say. And then also too, I would also say to reach out to, not just reach out to your community, but continue to reach out to your circle for support. You know, call your girlfriend up, or your church community, or whomever that you need to, and ask them to pray with you. Spend time, doing some things. And then a third thing I would mention is trying to do things in balance, right? Because a lot of times when we're feeling stuck, we get caught up in this, we get in, funnel. It's like we're so focused on this one thing, where life is multidimensional. There's so much in our life, right? So try to kind of do things within balance. So that way you're accepting and seeing that life is just not in that one thing that you're feeling stuck in. So those are some of the things I would mention to someone who's kind of feeling stuck in some things I've done in order to help me feel unstuck. And the
Yeah.
reason why you want to celebrate the wins is because you want to look at and you can want to realize and see, hey, I'm not doing as bad as what I thought I was, or I was in that situation, but I'm not in that situation anymore. And the small things lead to the big changes that we're looking for. So those are the things I would say.
I just wanted to amend my answer because this was something that has been sticking with me all night that I've been meaning to get out.
Go ahead.
We have to stop striving for perfection and
Oh.
strive for excellence instead. And there is a difference between excellence and perfection. Striving for perfection will get you into an early grave. But when you do things in the spirit of excellence and you're striving to be excellent for you, then it changes the dynamic, the energy you put in it, and what you get out of it.
Yeah. Thank you for adding that, because someone told me that recently. Like my videos for my content, I would record it 100 times before you see it, trying to make it perfect. And someone said to me, just put it out there. Like, I'm the only one who cares that is not perfect. So we have to strive for excellence. I love that, Reverend Todd. Thank you, instead of perfection. So 2 more, Dr. Odie and Jenny. Person, advice to someone who's feeling stuck emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. What advice would you give them?
Number one, I'll remind you that you're not God.
Simple
I'll
as that.
let you know that you are a work in progress. And if you will accept it, you are not finished. You're not a finished product. If you ask an artist his best work, he'll tell you the next one. Because from the experiences, what you are going through, you bring out the better you. And I'll tell you to begin to dance for the audience of one man. You know, when you are walking around trying to please the whole world, you'll be there stuck. But when you have a relationship with God and it's to Him you live, that brings out a better you. And a number of people are stuck because they're in deep competition with everybody around them. But the only person you should compete with is the person you see in the mirror.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
We are not here for comparative study. I believe Isaiah 40:26 said that God put all the host of stars you see in the orbit. He knows all of them by name. By the power of His might, not one of them felleth. He knows everybody by name. He knows my address. I can't be trying to please you and please the other person. I'm in trouble. Just recognize who you are and remember that it's before God you stand and live. You'll do better and you'll come out. Thank you.
Such great advice. Oh my goodness. We're going to have to make sure we document all these gems that we're putting out there. All right, Jenny, take us home.
Wow. A lot of the ladies have said a lot of things. Yes, that I definitely agree with. First thing that comes to mind for me is I want to say this to a woman, to learn to trust yourself more. Because a lot of us women, we seek external validation. Yeah. Even when we've prayed to God and God's given us the answer, we'll get on the phone to this person, that person, that person. And I know in the Bible it says we need to seek counsel. But sometimes you know what you need to do. You know what step you need to take. So learn to trust yourself. Build up your confidence with yourself. And also add into that, make sure that you, if you say you're going to do something for yourself, make sure you do it. Because what starts to happen is you start to lose confidence within yourself. This is why some women don't have that confidence. They say that they're going to do something, and then when it comes round, they'll talk themselves out of it and they don't move forward. So speaking from experience, that was something that I used to do, have these great ideas and then just dismiss it. Or what I would do is go and speak to somebody else and then I would allow that person, what they've said to me, external validation again. Yeah, you're right. That doesn't sound good. Somebody else is doing that. But it's about owning it. Even when somebody says to you, that doesn't sound like maybe a good choice. If you know that this is something that you want to do and you've prayed to God, go ahead with it, and just ask God just to put you on the right path, to order your steps, as it says in the word. So it's about really just becoming more confident with who you are as a woman. And as Dr. Oti said, comparison is a thief of joy. If we're here to compare each other, looking on social media, doing this, when all that glitters is not always gold on social media. I say this to a lot of the women, parents that I speak to, and the young people especially. Don't take that at face value. You can be who you want to be, and just really just let go of people's expectations as well. It may be difficult. You may say, oh, it's easy for her to say, but believe me, I have come to that point in my life that I'm at peace with myself and who I am, because God is within me, and I will not fail if God is within me.
No, absolutely. And I would just add to that, we're all talking about joy. So I encourage you, if you have a minute, those listening, go on my website and download From Broken to Bold, 7 Healing Truths to Reclaim Your Joy. We're all talking about reclaiming your joy and getting your joy. It's so important. Thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation. Reverend Ty, Elijah, Jenny, Dr. Oti, you have really sewed into the lives of our listeners. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this evening and for sharing your journey and your testimony and being so transparent. We have to do this again. Is there anything anyone would like to say before we sign off?
This was a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I really could go on a few more hours, but I know we can't.
I know. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been the Debrief with Dr. D. Real talk, real strategy, real leadership, one insight at a time. I hope you've gotten something out of this broadcast tonight. Share it with someone and listen to it again and again and again. Thank you, ladies. Stay on for me. Don't go anywhere. We're going to play the extra. Take care, everyone.
Well, thank you for joining me today on the Debrief with Dr. D. If this episode spoke to your heart, share it with someone who needs a word of hope and clarity. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with our social media community. And remember, healing is not weakness, it's wisdom. You don't have to lead on empty. You don't have to rise alone. You were built to lead, to heal, and to thrive from the inside out. Until next time, lead well, heal deep, and walk boldly. This is Dr. D signing off.